Hey everyone, welcome to our webcast Crew Talk, brought to you by Shoots Video and Blair Media, a team of driven professionals that are passionate about visual storytelling. I'm Nicole Matarish, your host and producer turned host here at Shoots Video. I'm speaking with you live from California's beautiful Central Valley, and I'm joined today by amazing people from the entertainment industry, where we'll be telling you all about the company Staff Me Up, what we all do, and more. But before we go round robin here, introducing our wonderful guests, I just wanted to invite those watching live here to please feel free to ask questions to us during the show via the Q&A portion of our chat. And we're happy to answer any questions on our show. So feel free to let us know. So now we'll go ahead and introduce our guests here. Again, our topic for today's webcast Crew Talk from Shoots Video is about Staff Me Up. And before we go ahead and do that, let's introduce our wonderful supporting panelists that we'll be learning about today. So we're learning about them, Staff Me Up, speaking about our experiences and all that fun stuff. So Anne, let's start with you. How are you today?
I am well today. It's a little cold. I'm from just outside of Boston. I am a motion graphics artist as well as editor and sometimes producer. I've been freelance since 1997, since before the turn of the century, which makes me feel old. I do pretty much anything that a client asks me to do that's legal. No. But I've done anything from like broadcast interstitial like animations to I did a bunch of work on infomercials. I do a ton of corporate work, which right now that's like the bulk of my work. A lot of supporting stuff in this climate. I've done a lot of supporting graphics and visuals and video content for a lot of virtual meetings now. A lot of that is, stuff. So it's, and I work for various production companies typically, and sometimes direct to clients.
Wonderful. It's a lot of great stuff. Ooh, I love to hear it. Great. Well, thank you so much, Anne. Wonderful to meet you and to have you on the show. Next up here, we have Eric. Eric, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, thank you. Feeling good today. I would love to hear a little bit more about you, Eric. What are you up to? What's your background?
Well, I'm the founder and CEO of Creators Legal, which is LegalZoom essentially for the creator industry, and one-click contracts for filmmakers, musicians, independent artists. And my background is in the I was a lawyer for 25 years in the entertainment business and represented all sorts of different, from athletes and Olympians to musicians, production companies, writers, painters, any kind of visual artists. And my sort of claim to fame was I represented the Tupac Shakur estate for 18 years. And
so cool.
I like to say I'm the only lawyer who's represented Tupac, Biggie, Snoop, Dre, Death Row Records, Priority Records, Ruthless Records, and Eazy-E. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did a lot of intellectual property cases over the years, and I really felt like a lot of the stuff that I do and a lot of the times we ended up in court were because clients really didn't want to come to lawyers. And so I came up with the idea of Creators Legal a long time ago and finally had the opportunity to start putting it together. And we launched about 6 months ago. And it really is that place where indie filmmakers, musicians, podcasters can come in and get their contracts done for, very inexpensively without a lawyer. And we, in a really short period of time, we have a few hundred users who have built 600 contracts. So we like to say we've taken $600,000 away from lawyers so far, and hopefully we'll hit a few million pretty quickly. And that's it. That's what we do. So
wonderful, Eric.
Contracts for creators.
Yeah, well, congratulations on launching just about 6 months ago. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Great to have you on. Anne and Eric, you're so interesting. I love both of your stories and what you do.
Shoots Video is a place for creatives to showcase their work and be seen by producers, marketing managers, corporate executives, and other future clients. Add your reel to Shoots Video today.
So now let's transition here and talk to Nicole, the Director of Business Development at Staff Me Up. Nicole, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for asking and thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So can you let's jump right in here. Can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about what Staff Me Up is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Staff Me Up was founded in 2003, and we're essentially like the LinkedIn specifically though for television production. So from the ground up, our foundation has always been about television production, and we're really the go-to site for those looking to get hired as well as to hire. So we service both the employer side and the job seeker side. We have thousands of jobs that are posted on our site on a weekly basis by hundreds of different employers that are, different production companies that are contracted by networks like Netflix, HBO Max, Bravo, like literally all the TV shows and networks that you can think of.
So cool, Nicole. So can you tell us a little bit more about how Staff Me Up got its start?
Yeah. So Staff Me Up, like I said, was founded in 2003, and we were founded by one of like the first producers for The Amazing Grace. And so, as you can imagine, they needed lots of crew
Wow.
in lots of different places.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's how it all started. We were originally called reality staff back in the day for anyone who was on reality staff. And over time, we've grown into who we are today with over 370,000 users on our platform.
Wow, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Wow, thank you.
So that transitions well into my next question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more ways that your clients benefit from Staff Me Up?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of like a personal story, right? So Staff Me Up really, like, especially if you're just starting in the industry, Staff Me is going to be like one of the first places you go. For me, I was a line producer in unscripted television for 10 years. And so I've used Staff Me Up both to post jobs, to hire other crew members like camera operators, audio supervisors from all over the US. And actually, when I started working at Staff Me Up just over a year ago, I went back into my history and I was like, oh my gosh, Staff Me Up gave me one of my first jobs in the industry. And I didn't even realize it. So I really came full circle. And I just say that, to really say that it really is helpful for both employers and job seekers. So like I'll start with on the job seeker side, because that's where a lot of people know of Staff Me Up. What I really like about Staff Me Up is that we have a dedicated I have a dedicated coworker who literally just goes through every job that's posted on Staff Me Up to vet them. So we really vet it to make sure that they are verified employers. We verify, is it a full rate job or is it a low budget jobs? Because, especially for entry level positions, right? You want to be open to both full rate and low budget jobs. So we have like indie producers that are posting on here, as well as, like I said, like the Netflix shows, the HBO shows. And you can utilize, that filter to be able to say, like, I want to see all of those jobs, or I only want to see full rate jobs. And that's how it really is like on the job seeker side. And what a lot of people don't realize too is it's completely free to create a Staff Me Up profile. So you can create the profile, you can put all your credits in. I always suggest that people keep their credits updated, right? Because so as a part of the free, you get 5 free job applications. And like, let's say you're working already, you're not on Staff Me Up because you don't need a job right now, you have a gig. It's just so important to keep your credits updated because, like I said, we have thousands of employers that are on our site that are not only posting jobs, but also looking at the site for more, looking at all 370,000 people, for looking for crew to keep in mind for their next show that they're producing. And so just as much as like you might not be on Staff Me Up all the time, there are employers who will pull up your online resume on Staff Me Up and be like, wow, maybe I'll reach out to them to see if they're available in May. They may not be available now, but maybe in May. And so it really is important for the job seekers to keep their credits updated, and it's free to do so. Like, you never have to pay more to put in more credits or anything like that. You can put in all your experience. And that's just on the job seeker side. And then on the employer side, I don't even know where to start with the benefits because, one, it's always free to post jobs also too. And like, for me, I'm not just the director for business development, but I'm also the director for diversity and inclusion at Staff Me Up. And so I'm really in charge of all our strategic initiatives. Um, that work with production companies to create access and awareness, diversity, equity, and inclusion on all of our sets, and psychological safety as well. And so we help also employers not only just like post jobs and find people from all over, but also to be as inclusive as possible within these jobs and really create that diversity that helps stir authentic storytelling within their content then. And so one of the things that I get to do at Staff Me Up is we also work with over 50 plus different diversity advocacy organizations. So think like Brown Girls Doc Mafia, Ghetto Film School, like all the different pipelines. Hugh You Know is one of our biggest partners at Staff Me Up. And for those who don't know, Hugh You Know is a collection of over 18,000 professionals in the entertainment industry. Started in 2017, and they've grown so large since then. And to be able to help our employers and production companies connect with our diversity advocacy organizations, and then also search for candidates from historically excluded backgrounds, is one of the biggest benefits that we can give to our give to our employers. Because then, and when I say historically excluded, I mean like, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ plus, people with disabilities, women and those who identify as non-binary, military veterans, and so really working holistically to create access and awareness for these jobs to everyone, but also specifically those from historically excluded backgrounds, is a service that we also provide, on top of like being able to provide diversity analytics and reporting to our employers. And again, just access to 370,000 crew members from across the US. So, especially right now, like there are so many shows and so much content being made. We have more jobs, than I've seen in a long time being posted on Staff Me Up, because everyone's just looking for someone. And we've been, we always get really great feedback from our employers and job seekers alike.
That's wonderful, Nicole. It's great to hear all of that. And what you said here transitions well into my next question. So you spoke a lot about creating an account for free, and that's wonderful that someone could sign up right now for Staff Me Up for free. I'm curious of the benefits of Staff Me Up with having a premium account. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, so with a premium account, you can apply to an unlimited number of jobs, first and foremost. And all that to say too, like I said, like if say you have a premium account, you on your 20th application, right? Because you're applying to all the ones that fit your criteria. Say you get a gig for 6 months. What's great is that you can also email us and be like, hey, I'm on a gig for 6 months. Can I pause my subscription? And we'll be like, absolutely, of course. So you can also do that. Yeah. And not a lot of people know that. So I did want to put that out there. And then so you can apply to an unlimited number of jobs. You can feature your application. So that doesn't necessarily put you higher or lower. That's still based on our algorithm and your experience. But what that does do is it literally highlights, just like, in Zoom when you're talking and you get a highlighted box around your face. You get a highlighted box around your application. And then on top of that, you can also choose the credits that you want shown. So like the top 3 credits that you want shown to the employer. So when they're going through your application, they're going to see your name, your title, and then the 3 credits that you choose to be highlighted. And then from there, the employer can click into your profile and see all the credits that you have added. But at least it gives you some more flexibility with that. And you can also feature your resume on your profile as well.
So I have a question about the credits, Nicole, because does the IMDb profile, because somebody added a credit on my IMDb profile many years ago, which I never removed just because I thought it was so funny, because I appear as Self on Playboy Sex on the Beach. And it's actually in my IMDb listing. Do you guys use IMDb as part of that as well?
Only if you can input your IMDb link onto your Staff Me Up profile, but that's not something that we automatically do. We do use a system called Baseline to pull in credits, but not necessarily IMDb, only if you provide that on your Staff Me Up profile. And that's something that you have to voluntarily do.
Got it.
I do have a question for Anne. Anne, you are a freelancer. Yes. Do you have any experience with Staff Me Up or similar websites?
No, I actually just sort of signed up for the free version. I'm going to check it out. It's always good to have definite just leads here and there. I'm pretty busy right now, which is good, but it's always good to just have a resource, and it seems pretty good.
Awesome. That's great.
I got my first job in Hollywood through a staffing agency. I still recall, and it was recommended to me by a good friend of mine who I went to high school with, who ended up using the same service and got a job that day with the guy he was sent to, and has gone on to become a Peabody Award winner.
Nice.
From that same job that started out from a staffing agency.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Nicole, you're doing great work at Staff Me Up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that note, are there any upcoming or new features on Staff Me Up that you would like to tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that most of the new features are for our employers. So like I said, like the diversity analytics and reporting, something that we provide per project for our employers who subscribe to that feature. And, especially right now, we have, like, there are so many networks that are asking as part of your deliverables, like, what's the makeup of your team? And so that's something that we're able to provide them as a third party service that really keeps that data confidential, as well as our concierge service. So like I said, there are so many people that are hiring right now, and they have many jobs. So what we do is, on a high touch level, we provide them essentially their own dedicated Staff Me Up production manager with experience in production management, just like myself, where we can, invite people to apply. And on the job seeker side, when you're invited to apply to a job, don't ignore those emails, because what that also means is, with a free profile, let's say you've used up all 5 of your free applications. If you're invited to apply to a job, you can apply to that job for free. So there's no having to pay for an extra credit or anything like that. Like, you are able to apply to that job for free when you're invited. And there are a lot of people, including our concierge service, who are going into jobs and inviting qualified applicants to apply. And so I would say that's even an underutilized thing that not a lot of people know about. Even myself before coming to Staff Me Up. So I did want to highlight that. But a lot of our employer tools are really what's new. And, like I said, we're built for production. So as an employer, when you post a job on Staff Me Up, a lot of times it's like, okay, now I need to share these applicants with my production coordinator. I need to share it with my showrunner or EP. And you're able to collaborate on those jobs, and everyone can see those applicants together as a team.
That's wonderful, Nicole. I do have a recommendation from an audience member, Charles. Thank you here for writing this here. I highly recommend a book called The Business of Media Distribution by Jeffrey Cullen, I believe is how to pronounce that last name. So thank you very much. And that transitions into my next question for you, Nicole. What do you like most about what you do at Staff Me Up?
Oh man, I would say it's the impact that I get to make, not just even in terms of like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which that is, I would say 90% of it, because that's really where my passion lies, like being able to make an impact on the industry at a higher level. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but we also, as part of Staff Me Up, we have launched a partnership called Coded for Inclusion. And so that is our partnership alongside Color of Change, Change Hollywood, AMC Networks, Endeavor Content, and Michael B. Jordan's Outlier Fellowship. Awesome. And so with that, it's really creating access and awareness to all these opportunities that we have available, specifically for people from historically excluded groups, and elevating their voices and creating, usually in Hollywood, right? Like it's all about who you know. But what we're trying to do is break down that system, because that in and of itself is exclusion by familiarity, right? If you're constantly hiring the same people or only hiring people within your network, the question is, are you truly being inclusive? So by just posting on Staff Me Up, you're opening up your network to hundreds of thousands of new people that you would have never otherwise met. And to be able to do that on such a strategic level, and create those sustainable processes for production companies to be able to continue that and break those old patterns and behaviors, it is really impactful and meaningful for me. And I would say that's what I love most. But then also getting to, talk to our job seekers, speaking with you all, speaking with other members from diversity advocacy organizations. I also get to speak with college students, and just even on an individual level, being able to make that impact and being someone who can, just help be as guiding light on how to navigate this weird industry that we're in. is really, it really gives me energy to do that, and that's what motivates me to continue.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Nicole, for what you do, and thank you, Staff Me Up, for what you all do in that regard and in every regard. So thank you very much. Eric, I have a question for you. So you're a Creators Creators Legal is the
Yep.
name of your company. Could you see yourself using a service like Staff Me Up, or are you in a little bit of a different area now? Or like, could you have seen a past Eric being on Staff Me Up? Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Well, I don't know that we would use it unless we're actually doing some sort of production, but I mean, I think
Okay.
that these types of sites, especially like Staff Me Up, are really integral to the industry and bringing so many more people in and expanding it outside of Hollywood as well, right? Because like Anne was saying, she's located in Boston. I've represented production companies that are sort of all over, and people always think about it just in LA, but there's so many productions that are going on in so many other places, right? All over the world, really. And I was, in a previous life, I certainly would have been, because I worked at a production company in LA for a long time. And most of ours, most of our productions were done elsewhere. They were either done in Europe or in Asia. We almost never filmed in the US. But with Creators Legal, it's so much about the indie creator and the small production companies and things like that. I mean, for us, we wouldn't actually do it, be using it, but it's a great resource, especially with all the people that are coming in and out of our site as well. I'd love to be able to, send them over and vice versa, right?
That's wonderful, Eric. What kind of artists do you mostly work with at Creators Legal?
Well, like I said, it's just a website, and it's really do-it-yourself, website that are people coming in. But we have a lot of filmmakers. We started a pilot program with Cal State Northridge, their Cine Arts program. So we are a mandatory tool, so to speak, for their film students, their upper level film students. So we actually, it's fun because I actually get to see what they purchase along the way, because it sends in the orders. And so they're really active. And so we've got a lot of filmmakers. Podcast has actually been a really big thing for us. We have a full suite of podcasts. And we have everything from, NFT contracts for artists, live theater, self-publishing. So we actually see a lot of the stuff go through musicians and indie musicians. But the most that we actually see is film production and podcast. Yeah. So
wonderful, Eric. Thank you for speaking about that. I wanted to mention we got a comment from an audience member here. Thank you, Leslie. I'll read it. I'm glad this. Let me start from the beginning. I don't know how I got on this email list, but I'm glad it made it to my inbox. Us too. I am looking for crew for a short I am producing. First time. Congratulations, Leslie. That's great. So I will check out Staff Me Up. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie, for saying that. And a reminder to everyone in the audience, if you have any questions for myself or for any of our wonderful guests here, please feel free to ask. We'll jump back into the questions here. So Nicole, I have a hypothetical situation for you that I want to pitch, and I'm curious about, for freelancers signing up for Staff Me Up. I've just signed up for Staff Me Up. I've added my resume, and I know you spoke a little bit to this, but what could I expect next after just signing up, getting my resume on there? What's next?
Yeah, first step, set up your work alerts. And so what that is for whatever job it is that you're looking for, set up your work alerts so that whenever a job of that title or similar title is posted on Staff Me Up, you get emailed, and then you can immediately apply. So for jobs like PAs, right? We have hundreds of applicants that apply for every PA job. So you want to be one of the first to apply. So as soon as you get that work alert, you already know, like you said, your credits are already updated, your profile is fully filled out, you're good to go. I would also like to recommend too, if, for people, we also have a self-ID portion of your profile. So that's where you can self-identify your race, ethnicity, gender, background, if you have a disability, and you can choose to have that hidden or displayed on your profile. But either way, if you fill that out, then that still allows it allows employers to be able to search, you know, by your different identities. And then, but it also is like open to everyone, right? Like, so it's not, it's just really being as inclusive as possible. So, but then when you are getting those work alerts, right? Because everything's already filled out, you're 100% completed on your profile, you can immediately put yourself forth for that. So work alerts, work alerts, work alerts, they're amazing. And then also just checking out the job board. So you can literally go in and search for, if you wanted, right? You can search all the 10,000s of jobs that are on Staff Me Up and just go through every one, or you can filter it by whatever position is that you're looking for. So whether that's a PA position, a field producer, and I will say majority of our jobs are below the line, but we do have a few above the line. So like showrunner producers, casting producers, things like that. We do have those on our site, but majority will be for your below the line positions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole. So I have a question here that, to be honest, I don't completely understand myself, but I'm curious about because I think it relates to what you were just saying. So I'll go ahead and read the question here. What are the benefits of listing as a recommended vendor? Is that a portion of Staff Me Up? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not also sure what they mean by recommended vendor. We do have a portion of Staff Me Up that we're looking to build out, which is a vendor database. But that hasn't been built yet. But if you are a vendor, definitely check out that part. So it's in the What's New tab when you sign into Staff Me Up, and then you can add yourself onto our vendor database once we are ready to launch that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone who asked me that question wants to jump in here and kind of elaborate, I'd love to keep talking about that as well. Figuring it out as I go too, and learning much more about Staff Me Up today, which I'm happy to be learning about. Now, I want to rewind a little bit to Anne here. And you seem like someone who could benefit from a site like Staff Me Up. And I would love to hear a little bit about your start in freelance, in motion graphics, and all that you do. So can you speak a little bit to that, please?
Sure. So I started, I majored in art in college and had no idea what I was going to do. And I got a job doing audiovisual stuff, which led to photography, which led to, this was like before computers were used for a lot of stuff. Like it was real photography with like film and, like now nobody uses actual film. Very few people use actual film. But anyway, like long story short, I ended up, I was working for a production company on staff, and I just was working to death, and I was young, and it was like, oh, I'm doing the coolest stuff and, whatever. But I finally burned out, and I actually like decided to quit, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And the actual owner of the company was like, oh, you totally should freelance and call anybody you want in my role. She was really nice. I guess I quit at an opportune time that didn't really leave them out. And she actually hired me as a freelancer back to the same company, which ended up meaning like I basically doubled what I was making. Even though I had to, like as a freelancer, I have to pay my own benefits and all that stuff. But, I could also, like when I got burned out, I could just stop, and stuff like that. And so back then, Staff Me Up would have been a really good thing to have. And even now, I do have steady work, but you just never know. Like COVID like knocked it out for a bit, and it was pretty scary. I think it was scary for everybody in the industry. I also do a lot of different things. I do motion graphics, I do some 3D, I do some compositing, I do a lot of editing. I've actually jumped behind a camera before, I have a background in a lot of things, which helps, but predominantly I do post things now, and I like that.
That's wonderful, Anne. I'm the same way, where I always feel like I'm wearing many hats, but it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And this transitions well to my next question for you, which you spoke to a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the industry has changed since you began working freelance?
There's I started freelancing pre 9/11, Avid was relatively new. There was just the software is so different, and just different things. Like the software makes things so much easier now. I mean, geez, we can, you can search for a word in a script and find it like immediately, which is just makes it so much faster and easier. And I think the industry, it's I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. In some ways it's easier, and then some ways it's harder. Like as a female in the industry, I've been very lucky that I haven't really had too many problems with that. But I do kind of feel like I've been up against male counterparts who say they're experts in the thing, and I'll say like, I'm okay in this, but I don't know that I would call myself like an expert. And then all of a sudden I realize the guy who was hired as the expert, I'm like, oh wow, I know more than he does, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But you just roll with it. I'm pretty good at standing up for myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I could relate, so you only understand where you're coming from. I do have two questions here from Joel. Thank you, Joel, our audience member. I'll go ahead and read them. Nicole, I think they're directed at you. I'm an old producer who's been around for a while. Some credits in the early days of reality, like field producer for first season of Real Housewives and shooter producer for MTV Made. I love both shows. That was me saying that. Not so. Two questions. I have BTS and network promo work around reality shows and have had a hard time fitting them into your format. Are you considering options for credits that don't fit in as neatly as role on this show? So yeah, let's start with answering that question, and then I'll get to the next question after that. So yeah, Nicole, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, Joel, I also love those shows. So congrats on a great career. And yeah, so I will say Staff Me Up is actually, we are a very small team of about 12 people. Not a lot of people know that. They think we're this huge conglomerate. But with that comes a lot of great things, like one, taking into consideration feedback that we get from our users. Our users are always number one for us. And currently, I would recommend for any network promos or BTS, what we do have is, we usually say like show, season, production company that you worked for, things like that. You can always put non-applicable, or for, the network or the production company, I would just put whatever the in-house company was that hired you. But you can also put full-time. And so when you put full-time, or like no end date kind of thing to your credit, or staff position, I don't remember exactly what it's called. I think it might be a staff position. That puts you around the whole having to put in the show name, the season, things like that. And so that's first what I would recommend using is when you're typing in your credits, use the staff position, so then it's more relevant to what actual information you'd be putting for your job. And then, like I said, as we continue to grow into different parts of the industry, that's something that we continue to build out. And that's something that we've heard before as well.
Well, thank you, Nicole. And I'll read, Joel has two more questions here. I'll go ahead and ask them. Where's all the hiring happening these days? Can you speak to something like that? Where have you noticed a trend of who's hiring or anything like that?
I mean, from what I can see, there's a lot. So majority of the jobs that are posted, I would say 80% to 90% are in unscripted television. So I can only speak to unscripted television. But a lot of it is within production management jobs. There are a lot of production management jobs that people are looking for. Production accountants are very much in demand right now. And that's across the board for all the different production companies, all the different types of shows. But, there's all new content, continuing content, like renewed seasons that are hiring right now. And so definitely now is the time, if you are in one of those positions, to update your Staff Me Up profile.
Wonderful. And last question here from Joel. What are your favorite companies, shows, networks, any to avoid? Nicole, maybe we won't address the last portion, but Anne and Eric, if you have anything to tune in here of your favorite companies, shows, or networks, feel free to jump into. Nicole, we'll start with you.
Well, Nicole, I'm just going to tell you, as a lawyer, avoid that last part of the question.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good, yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate the consultancy. I don't have to pay for that, do I?
So let's talk about
I
favorites.
appreciate it.
Free. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I mean, there are, I don't even know where to start, even in terms of favorites. I mean, like there's just such good content, and really for me, at least, if I were in a job seeker position, right? Like I would always just take a look at the company and the content, and even go as deep as, like, if I know what show is hiring, like I would go as deep as, looking into IMDb and seeing like who the executive producers are, who are the showrunners, and like what other content have they produced. Like, does that seem like where I want to take the trajectory of my own career? Like, is that where even I want to be? But I don't necessarily have a favorite. I'm also someone, just so I'm not like, just to say too, like I don't even have like a favorite color. So like I just like, it's more about, for me, the team and who I'm working with. And so beyond just show or company or network, I can talk to you in terms of like the shows that I like to watch right now are on like Prime Video and HBO Max. But in terms of staffing and working, it really is all about the people, and there are such good people to work with in this industry.
That's wonderful. And Eric, can you speak to that a little bit? Do you have any favorites? Is it kind of all over the map?
Well, I can just tell you, I mean, I cut my teeth in the industry at an agency in the days when they still threw stuff, right? So if I'm dating myself, but Swimming with Sharks, the movie with Kevin Spacey, was really sort of, it still causes PTSD for me, right? Like those were the days. So I was used to those production companies and those execs and everybody else, that it was really very, very harsh environment for everybody. It didn't matter who you were, right? Because they wanted to weed people out and make sure that they could sort of be tough through that stuff. I couldn't tell you how the places are these days. But it's the same thing as Nicole said, right? I have to agree. Like, where's the content getting out there? Are you working for a production company that the content is getting out? Because somebody who works on a project, that project becomes huge, really benefits everybody who worked on that project, right? And I always say it's just as easy to make a bad movie as it is to make a good one, right? It's just as difficult to make a bad movie as it is to make a good one. But those, working on any of those HBO productions, you mentioned HBO Max, but Amazon's doing some amazing stuff these days, and they've taken over MGM, and like there's so much out there, and there's so much content and everything else, and it's important to leapfrog from from kind of one thing to the other. If you're just starting out, get that job through the temp agency, or get that first production so you can start building those credits. Just work really hard being that person that's like going to be around doing that extra mile, because that's what gets you known, right? And I've watched the people I kind of grew up with at the agency and the production companies. Some of them went on to amazing careers. One of my friends became the president of production at Warner's, and another one became, the showrunner at Buffy, and then went on to, her own stuff. So it really just depends, right? It really just depends. And try to look, who are the people producing this? What are their other credits? Are they for real, right? Because there's a lot of that stuff out there that's not really for real. So is the paycheck going to come? Is it actually funded, right? Things like that. And I can't speak to Staff Me Up and how they vet that stuff, but I'm sure it's pretty tough, right? Because there's a lot of not so great people in the industry as well. But,
yeah, I 100%, Eric. You really have to be careful with where you're applying and who you're applying to. Like you said, like, really look into who these people are. And I can just say, for Staff Me Up, we do have a pretty tough vetting process. We kind of go through your LinkedIn and everything to make sure you're legit and have like production insurance, for instance. That's something that we require as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's good to know. I mean, just that alone, right? If there's a vetting process, because there's so many productions that shut down and they can't finish, and find out more about it, dig in a little bit. Who are the people, right? What kind of credits do they have? But, so, yeah. I'm sure Anne can attest to all of that. I'm sure doing this stuff as long as she has, she's like, hey, when's the check coming? Right? I'm sure there's probably a lot of that, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had all sorts of experiences, good and bad. I had one where I was actually working as a director on a 3-camera infomercial shoot with a 15-person crew. And I was one of the only women, and the owner of the company, who was also the host of the show. It was just this whole thing where we did 2 shoots of the commercial, and the morning one, he ended up stopping and storming off after I had to stop because he was sweating so profusely. I needed him to be powdered down, and he just got really mad and like basically, ripped me a new one in front of the entire crew, which was mostly male, and they felt awful seeing that. And I had worked with this guy a lot, and he came back that afternoon, and we nailed it. And so in the morning, he was telling me I was incompetent in front of the crew, and then in the afternoon, he's like, oh my God, this is the best, you are the best director ever. And the crew's like, how do you deal with that? And I'm like, well, they both cancel each other out. And you just really, really have to have a thick skin. I mean, that's probably one of the worst case scenarios. I also had a executive producer who was South African and had a very heavy accent. And she told me once, "You're pathetic." and you kind of have to just look at it and go, wow, are you really saying that to me in front? Where if I walked right now, it would be really hard on you. And, I ended up staying and finishing the job because that's what I do, which ultimately that person actually gave me a lot of opportunities later. So you just never know. And it's never black and white, awful or good. It's always somewhere on a continuum. And,
I had a boss that used to fire me in the morning, and I knew that I just sort of stick around because he would hire me back after he came into my office.
And I've had
it would literally happen 4 days a week.
Yeah, I've also had checks for thousands of dollars bounce, and then you have to go chasing it. And I've learned to just go the opposite way from calling payroll directly and tracing it back to where the problem is with the, okay, who miscalculated, who did this. And, you just get savvy about it. I'm pretty good though at standing up for myself at the beginning of a job. I mean, I've had people ask me what can you do about your rate? And I'm like, my rate's pretty much not negotiable. And I said, that won't work well for either of us. And I had a producer ask me that, and, why would it not be good for us for you to reduce your rate? And I said, because I'm going to be walking in on the job at 75%. And I said, if you pay me 100% of what I'm asking, I'm going to give you more than that. But if you give me less, you're not going to get any more, and it's just attitude wise. And, it was one of those, it was a job I really wanted. It was a fun animation job that ultimately played on Oprah Winfrey's network. And, we ended the call, and I'm like, oh man, that I wish should I just ate it or whatever? And then I called them back a week later saying, hey, I've got another gig and I had you penciled in. I don't know if you need me or not, but I just wanted to check. And they were like, okay, hold on. And they're like, oh yeah, we want you for the whole time at your rate. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they were like, the producer took me aside, don't tell the other people what you're making. And I'm like, I typically don't, but.
So, I mean, there are occasions, doing enough productions, there are occasions where they're not sort of trying to nickel and dime. There is budget issues, right? And they, and you can either stick with it like you did, or they can prove to you that there is a budget issue, right? That it is slated. And that would be, because a lot of times when they do that, you're just thinking, oh, they're just trying to cut and save. But very often it's like, sorry, we can't hire you because we don't have the budget for that. And that's when you get to make that decision, right? You get to make that decision to say, and then you don't feel so bad oh, they're just trying to cut my rate, that there's an actual reason for it, right?
Yeah. And if we have that done, I've done stuff for nonprofits, and I've done stuff for people who are really starting out, and it's like, oh, if I like the project and it's something like, oh man, I'll learn something from this, or I'll, whatever, then, then it's worth it to me. And in which case that's a decision I've made on my own. And I'm
Right.
all in for that. Like I did a thing for a nonprofit last January. It was like a nonprofit out of San Francisco for kids education. And it was just like a video that played on their site, a little promo piece, and they needed some animation, and it was super fun. It was all these drawings I did. And they're like, look, we've got a tiny budget. And I'm like, you know what? I'm cool. And I love the people I worked with. I love the producer, the guy who was, doing, and I think it was sort of a labor of love. And then I did another job with them, and they were like, oh yeah, no, we'll pay you more money. And I'm like, fair enough, so yeah, it does go both ways.
Yeah.
So Anne,
Yeah, and when it
Nicole, go ahead. I'll go ahead and ask the question. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I was just gonna say, when it comes to pay, it very much is dependent. I think it's important to keep in mind like who your employer is, right? Like just that speaking from like a production management perspective, right? Like a Disney Plus show, right, is going to have a completely different budget than your smaller network that only has like a few smaller shows, like reality shows here and there. And with Staff Me Up too, we are very much champions for pay transparency, especially when it comes to equity, right? And so another tool I'll just mention for Staff Me Up is that we also have our negotiator tool. It's like a fun little name that we call it, but you can actually see how much an editor position for a reality TV show is making weekly. So then if you are in the process of negotiation, you can kind of balance and see, is that within the standard range? Am I getting undercut, overcut? And like we have it broken out into the different industries, and they are self-reported. It's self-reported data from our users, so that we're all helping each other as a community, as an industry, to be as transparent and just look out for each other.
That's really, really good, because that is one of the hardest things there is for years and years in the industry, is trying to figure that stuff out. But there's just so many different kinds of productions, and there's so many different levels, right? Yep. So you're talking about a Disney Plus, but it might be an independent production company who's actually done pretty well, that's trying to do something on spec, or is going to get the thing sold after. It happens more in movies than it does in TV, but there's, it does happen in TV. In fact, I don't think about it quite as much, but we have a full suite of independent television contracts and web series contracts on our site, because those are the other productions that happen on an absolute regular basis, right? Yeah. So, but it is so much about the production company, and who's involved is going to set, whether they're going to run out of money or not, right?
So I do want to go back to the questions from the audience. We got one question from Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. That I think ties back really well into Staff Me Up and Anne. So let me go ahead and open up the question here. Of course, I just minimized my screen, so never mind. The question was something to the extent of, Anne, what should one look for when applying for editing jobs? What makes a good editor? What makes you stand out?
So what makes me stand out? I know a bunch of platforms of, I know Avid quite well. I know Premiere. I know a little bit about DaVinci Resolve. You basically want to know the tool that your client needs, because it's very different. A really good editor needs to be organized. And it depends on how big the production is. Some of them have PAs that do all that for you, and you just sit down and do your thing, which is lovely. But if you're working for like an independent thing, you want to make sure that, if somebody else has to come in, they can sit down and understand like where your media is. Media management and all that stuff. And very often I've worked with other freelancers who have done a lot of stuff like out of their house, and they haven't worked on like an enterprise level. And so that's where it gets, like if you have like enterprise experience, like for example, with like shared storage and like Avid has it used to be called Interplay. Now I think it's Media Central. Those types of things where you can tag your footage so that, if you need to find it quickly, you can just type in a word. All those things are helpful. And like, I know people are like, well, I only work in Premiere. And I'm like, well, I work in what my clients want me to work in. If they're going to pay me, fine, and I guess that's it. An editor needs to these days know a lot of everything. It used to be much more specialized. Now, like, I do a lot of color grading and, and then, graphic knowledge for an editor is incredibly helpful. Like I know all of, like, I do a lot of motion. Like that's like my favorite thing to do. But it's, good to know like a little bit of everything and just you watch stuff and learn and
Wonderful.
be really, and open-mindedness of, if you do something you think is good and the producer doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that it's wrong or right. It's just, so you have to figure out like, okay, how do we make it work?
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great advice for editors out there who are looking to build a profile and get their resume and everything up on Staff Me Up. So I think that's a good place to kind of start to wrap up here. Thank you all so much for coming on the show, and thank you to the audience for their questions. I think we at least indirectly got to all of them. So thank you so much, everyone. So why don't we go round robin again, starting with Nicole. Where do you have anything you want to promote? If you want to promote your social media, feel free to let us know. Where can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to working at Staff Me Up, I'm also a certified life coach that helps people with like transitions and, really finding their authentic self and also just like navigating our own mental health. Like I know we talked about before, just these, pandemic times. And I see there was a few questions about, toxic employers and mental health and stuff. So if anyone wants to reach out, my Instagram is @wegrow.ngo. And then if anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. That's just linkedin.com/Nicole Kago. And if anyone has any questions about Staff Me Up, even beyond this, I'm more than happy, to give out my email. It's nicole@staffmeup.com. More than happy to connect about anything and any questions that you have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole. It's been great to learn about Staff Me Up. So thank you. Eric, why don't we go over to you? Can you tell us, do you have any social media to promote? Do you want to tell us a little bit more about Creators Legal that we haven't gotten to?
No, not really, but I did set up a Staff Me Up 50 promo code for anybody who's watching or any of the Staff Me Up peeps that would like to get 50% off an annual, I think it's for an annual subscription over there. And I am actually on Twitter, although I don't use it all that much, at Real Eric Farber. And we're pretty easy to find, creatorslegal.com. And then we do have plenty of social media stuff, and we do post quite a bit of stuff actually on our social media. And really, really thankful for being part of this. And that's it. The discount code is Staff Me Up 50. So, and I can put in, again, it's creatorslegal.com. We're pretty easy to find.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. Anne, so how about you? Where can we find you? Do you have anything to promote here?
No, nothing really to promote in general at this point. I do have a website, atvproductionstudio.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's ATVINSEL. Same thing on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook, you'll find a lot of horse pictures because I just do it for fun.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So that's it.
Great. Thank you. So I wanted to thank all of our wonderful guests for coming on today and speaking with me. I wanted to remind our audience to please follow Shoot's Video on social media and to check out Shoot's videos for more webcasts, more info on our work, and even more than that. So tune in next time for our webcast Crew Talk. I'm Nicole Matarese. Thank you again to our guests and the audience, and I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
You might be looking at Shoot Stop Video and thinking, so how does this all work? Is this about A, setting up the whole crew for me, B, just giving me options and having me handle it, or C, something in between? Well, it's D, all of the above. To put it simply, we're here to help you in any way that we can to get the crew and talent you need for your next production. We believe that every level of video production can benefit from a well-maintained list of qualified crew members for every position. This goes for pre-pro, on-set, and for post. Every project is different, so if you need a producer to help manage the decision-making process, then we can totally do that. If you're already a producer and want to build your own crew from scratch, then go for it. We're here to make your next production a success. And if you are crew or talent looking for producers that want you, then you've come to the right place. Sign up now, and also leave a referral for any solid people that you know that are already on here. Thank you for considering Shoot Stop Video, and happy shooting!